Okay, let's dive in. We're looking at a source today that honestly proves you don't need a huge budget to find something really special in the plant world. We've got these detailed notes from an expert gardener, someone who stumbled upon this pretty amazing plant. It cost just MYR5, that's barely over $1. And it turned out to be this, well, immediate success. Just took off. So our mission today is really to get into these notes on Gynura Pseudochina var, Hispida. We want to figure out what makes it tick. Why was this super cheap plant so incredibly vigorous? And maybe more interestingly, what happens when something you buy for looks turns out to be maybe more useful?
It's fascinating right from the start. The notes point out this plant's duality almost immediately. It's not just one thing. This Gynura species, it's valued both as an ornamental, for its foliage, supposed to look good, and as a perennial herb. That dual nature right there that kind of raises the stakes for this $1 wonder, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it didn't waste any time showing its potential. The notes mention this key observation that really kicks things off. Just 2 weeks. 2 weeks after repotting it, this bargain plant grew, and I'm quoting here, surprisingly fast and tall.
Yeah.
No settling in period, no hesitation. It just, boom, took over.
And that speed, that's a really critical piece of information for you, the listener. When you see that kind of explosive growth so quickly, it generally tells you one or two things. Either the gardener just absolutely nailed the conditions, the perfect spot, light, water, everything, or the plant itself is just naturally a powerhouse, a really vigorous grower by nature.
But that kind of vigor, it has implications, doesn't it? When something grows that fast, especially something so inexpensive, should we just think, great, or is there a catch?
Well, adaptability and speed are definitely good things generally. But you have to admit, that level of growth, if you don't manage it, it could potentially become a bit of an issue, maybe even invasive depending on the context. You need to keep an eye on it. The fact the gardener spotted its power straight away suggests they knew they'd need to be disciplined about containing it later on. It tells us this variety is like a resource multiplier. It's potent, but you got to respect it.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So this aggressive grower, let's talk about the looks. If you were just picking it up at a nursery for its ornamental value, what catches your eye?
The notes really focus on the leaves. They describe this bicolor foliage, specifically these really striking purples and green leaves. So you've got this deep, rich purple, often on the underside, paired with a vibrant green on top. It creates this depth, this richness. Honestly, it's way more interesting than just a plain green plant. It's quite dramatic, even without any flowers.
Right. And connecting that visual appeal to its actual size. This thing isn't tiny, is it? The notes say it gets quite tall.
Oh, yeah. Significantly tall. It can reach up to 1.3 meters.
Wow.
That's over 4 feet. So definitely not a little windowsill plant.
And that height, plus something else the gardener noted, makes it really practical, right? Something about shade.
Exactly. The observation was it appears to thrive in partial shade. Now, that's fundamentally important for gardeners. You've got a tall perennial here that doesn't need blazing hot sun all day. That makes it, as the notes say, an excellent candidate for a front yard microclimate. Or, any spot where you've got maybe filtered light or protection from harsh afternoon sun. Think about those difficult border areas, partially shaded. This plant could be a real problem solver. It gives you height and color without needing perfect conditions.
Okay, but here's where it gets a bit complicated. Despite the fast growth, the amazing leaves, its usefulness in shade, the gardener actually had a reservation. They specifically said they were not keen on its blooming, which is interesting.
Yeah, that does raise that question we touched on earlier. Why put all this effort into documenting a plant if you actively dislike one of its main features, like its flowers? The source explains why, though. It's about the structure. These aren't like classic individual ornamental blooms. They grow in tight bunches.
And the gardener, who clearly knows their botany, identified the structure, a capitulum.
Right.
They even gave examples we all get comparing it to things like a dandelion or a daisy. Common flowers, maybe a bit weedy sometimes.
Precisely. So you've got this real clash happening. The leaves, that purple and green, feel quite high-end, elegant even. But the flower head, the capitulum, it reminds you of something maybe less cultivated, something you might find in a lawn.
Aesthetics versus utility, right there.
Exactly that. The gardener loves the foliage, appreciates that it's a perennial herb, but the flower structure itself, not their favorite look. And this is key, because we know it's a perennial herb, its usefulness kind of overrides that aesthetic preference. It's like you accept a tool that isn't perfectly beautiful because it does its job exceptionally well.
Let's unpack that perennial herb a bit more. What does that mean practically?
Sure. So For anyone unfamiliar, perennial just means it comes back year after year on its own. You plant it once, it survives the winter, it grows back in spring. Reliable. And herb implies it has some use, often medicinal or culinary, though the notes don't specify the exact use here. So
Yeah.
combine that reliability coming back every year with the fact it gets over 4 feet tall, you've potentially got a substantial, dependable harvest each season. That value, the function, can definitely outweigh whether you personally love the look of the flower heads.
That's a great way to put it. Function gives permission to overlook form, in a way. So once the gardener realizes they have this powerhouse, vigorous, tall, reliable herb, the focus shifts, right? From just looking at it to, how do I make more of this?
Yep, which leads straight to propagation,
Yeah.
how to multiply it. And the notes are really helpful here. They list 3 main ways: stem cuttings, seeds, and dividing the tubers.
Okay.
Having multiple options like that is often a sign of a really robust, successful plant. It gives you flexibility.
Let's pause on that, because choosing how to propagate is a strategic decision, isn't it? If you're listening and thinking about multiplying a plant, what are the trade-offs there between cuttings, seeds, division?
Good question. Stem cuttings are generally the fastest way. You snip a piece, root it, boom, you have a new plant that's an exact genetic copy, a clone of the parent. Quick win, but zero genetic diversity. Every new plant is identical.
Okay, fast, but maybe vulnerable.
Potentially, yeah. Then there's tuber division. This involves digging up the plant and splitting the underground storage structure, the tuber. Each piece can grow a new plant. It usually results in strong, established plants quickly, but it's more disruptive to the original plant. And with some vigorous plants, you have to be careful you're not accidentally spreading it too easily if you're dividing tubers.
Right, could get out of hand.
Could do.
And the third way was seeds, which
Yeah.
the gardener chose. Why that route? It sounds slower.
It often is slower, yes. But the gardener decided that, given the plant's vigorous growth, using seeds seems the most promising route. The big advantage of seeds is genetic variation. Each seed is a unique combination of genes. So if you're thinking long-term health, or maybe even hoping to select for slightly different traits, maybe even better resilience, or different coloring seeds are the strategic play, you sacrifice that immediate cloning speed for potential long-term genetic strength and variety.
Interesting. So trading speed for resilience, but using seeds isn't instant gratification either. You can't just grab them anytime.
No, definitely not. The notes are specific about needing patience. You have to wait until the flowers are fully spent and dry. Only then can you collect viable seeds. That timing is critical. You need to let the plant complete its natural cycle. And ironically, that capitulum structure, the very thing the gardener wasn't keen on aesthetically,
Yeah.
well, that structure is often really efficient at producing and distributing a lot of seeds. So the ugly flower is the engine for future generations via the chosen propagation method.
Huh. Okay. The thing you dislike is actually key to the strategy you picked. That's gardening for you.
It often works out that way. Form and function aren't always aligned with our preferences.
So let's tie this all together. We started with this incredibly cheap plant, MYR5. It explodes with growth, gets surprisingly tall, has these beautiful two-tone leaves, but also these kind of common-looking flowers the gardener doesn't love. And ultimately, its value seems to come as much from being a reliable perennial herb as from its looks.
Exactly. If you synthesize that germy, Gynura Pseudochina var, Hispida emerges as this huge success story way beyond its price tag. It's fast, it's tall, it offers unique visuals with that foliage, and it serves a real function, especially in those tricky, partially shaded garden spots. The source material, the gardener's notes, they really give you a fantastic template for how to analyze the whole value proposition when you find something new.
Which brings us to a final thought, something for you, the listener, to maybe mull over. This whole deep dive highlights the value of just observing, paying attention, and assessing things critically, whether it's gardening or anything else. The gardener saw the beauty in the leaves, but also recognized what they didn't like about the flower, the capitulum. That contrast, between the visual appeal and the functional structure. It raises a bigger question, doesn't it? If something is incredibly useful, if it has high utility, does that make its aesthetic flaws less important or even irrelevant? How often, maybe in our work or lives, do we dismiss something because it doesn't look perfect on the surface? And in doing so, maybe miss out on the incredible power, the vigor, the function hiding underneath.
It's like valuing the engine more than the shiny paint job, isn't it? This source really challenges us to look beyond appearances sometimes, to appreciate the underlying capacity for growth, for utility, especially when that function is reliable, perennial, something you can count on year after year. Makes you think.